Hunting in South Africa is a dream for many and often once in a lifetime opportunity. But what does this mean? Once the show season is finished, preparations have been done, you guys are getting ready to come out to South Africa and enjoy the cultures, the experience, and of course, the main attraction, the hunting. Now, on this podcast, I've touched many times the responsibilities that the outfitter, the professional hunter, the tracker, and many others involved with getting you over here, their responsibilities in making sure that you leave with an unbelievable experience. But what does this mean for the client coming over? Does the client have a responsibility to uphold to make sure it's an enjoyable experience? We find out in this week's episode of the podcast. Hey guys, and welcome back to another installment of the PH Journals podcast. Before we get into it, I want to take this opportunity to thank it's our very first of the season, our very first sponsorship of the podcast, and I'm talking about Jim Green. Jim Green have been generous enough to send me the barefoot edition of the African Ranger. I'm looking so forward to testing that out this upcoming hunting season. We start this month. So I'll be putting these bad boys to the ultimate test out in very rugged, harsh terrain. I'm looking forward to it. And then in April, we head along for the traditional rut season of the fallow deer, where I know we will be crawling in between the swampy areas of the Cradock region. And I'm looking forward to testing them out as best as I possibly can. But once again, this podcast has been driven by many great individuals. And this week's episode is all about Jim Green. And I want to just take this opportunity to say a very big thank you to all of you guys back at the factory for getting involved and supporting a professional hunter, his dream, and the podcast. Thank you so much, guys. It means the world to me. And I'm looking forward in some many happy miles in the African Ranger Barefoot Edition. So, guys, like mentioned, what are the responsibilities from the other end, from the client side, right? A lot of hard work goes into this point. Getting the client onto the aeroplane and flying across the pond to enjoy the lovely side of South Africa and most importantly, the hunting season. But of course, there's only so much we can do. The old saying of lead a horse to the water trough, but you can't force him to drink. And in essence, it pretty much goes the same sort of principle. We cannot force clients to come along and enjoy the experiences that we can deliver. Now, I've been very fortunate to be on both ends of the coin. Clients that have come out with high expectations, that have kind of neglected their responsibilities and have left unhappy. But on the other end, and more so often now than ever before, I've had clients come out, understand their responsibilities, play full cards with their professional hunter and outfitter, and leave with a smile from ear to ear, enjoying every single aspect of what this beautiful country has to offer. And most importantly, what our incredible outfitters and professional hunters have put all the hard work in to get you guys to this point. So let me give you two ends of the coin. I'm going to label a couple of things what I believe should be the client's responsibility to understand. And please, guys, when I refer to clients, it's just a bad habit that's crept into the industry, referring individuals coming out to hunt and utilize our guiding services and our outfitters as clients. I don't really like the term, but for purpose of this podcast, and for the reference, I'm going to carry on using the term clients. I like to see them more as friends. Like I said, 90% of all safaris, clients come out, enjoy what they need to enjoy the prosperities of this country, the beautiful experiences we have to offer, and they leave with a smile on their faces and a relationship that turns from clientele to friendship. And that's the most special one of them all. So, like I said, I'm going to give two ends of the coin. I'm going to share two stories with you guys briefly, very quickly. I'm going to try and shorten it as much as possible because those of you that have listened to my podcast know how I love to waffle on. So I was very, very fortunate enough to experience both sides of the coin, right? Because I always believe in, especially growing as a professional hunter, you need to experience these kind of things because number one, it teaches you how to handle them going forward. Number two, it gives you an opportunity to better yourself from the mistakes you might have made on the hunt. And number three, you understand what your limitations are, right? Unfortunately, in an industry that is evolving as we speak, with current political climates, economic climates, and all that sort of stuff, a lot of the situations fall out of our hands. But we need to still understand that as professional hunters, as outfitters, we need to learn how to handle those sort of situations to better the enjoyment for the majority of clientele coming out. Yes, we can't keep everyone happy. And unfortunately, in this industry, I have seen it time and time again where expectations aren't met and things just really get blown completely out of proportion. And the misconception is had, and unfortunately, clients leave a little bit unhappy or unpleased. Now, I'm going to leave you guys with not a recent story. It happened a couple of years ago. I was working for a particular outfitter. There were clients involved, but also there were agents involved. Once again, third party, what's the right term for it? Third party acquaintances. Out of your control. Now, clients came out and the misconception already started. There were expectations put out onto the table. And unfortunately, me being who I am and what I've learned in the industry, being transparent with your client is rule 101. You have to. Honesty is key. So when the expectations were brought to the table that night at dinner after the range session we had, I kind of turned around to the clients and I said, guys, listen, in all honesty, we can't meet these expectations. Unfortunately, number one, you're in the wrong area for the kudu sizes that you guys are looking for. Number two, if this is the way the hunt is going to go, we need to understand that we're going to be spending a lot more time away from the main property than what we currently have planned. And the reason for that is the certain species that you guys want to chase, and in this scenario it was the tiny 10, so we were going to be based more down towards the coastal area, which in addition added quite a bit of costing onto it. Now, like mentioned, there was an agent involved. The agent was on the hunting trip itself. When the transparency was met, when we had our communications between all parties, there was a little bit of animosity to kick things off. Now, immediately I understood that, and I could see it, that the expectations were not going to be met. I was blatantly honest with that, because sometimes in the hunting industry, there's certain things, like I've mentioned, that are completely out of your control. If you are wanting a 55 to 60 inch kudu bull, you need to understand and be fully aware that that is not going to happen in the Eastern Cape. Yes, there are a number of outfitters in the Eastern Cape that have been very meticulous in making sure that their genetic pool can breed those sort of animals. Unfortunately, when you're hunting for a specific outfitter, that comes as another cost added on. So where we might be paying and I'm just throwing numbers out into the air here, $1,200 for a kudu bull, and you want that specific size, and we do go to that outfitter, you need to understand that you're going to be paying $2,500 to $3,000 for that kudu bull, for a 55 to 60 inch kudu bull. So being transparent with my client made them understand that, guys, look, that is an unrealistic goal, but still, you're in the Eastern Cape. Let's enjoy the Eastern Cape species. Come and hunt the Eastern Cape kudu bull. You're going to be happy with a 46 to 51 inch kudu bull. You are. They're beautiful animals. The hunting is exquisite. It's a magnificent experience. And I sold them this idea. But because that happened, a lot of the other animals took a bit of a back seat. Now, because of the back seat that it took, the package that was purchased through the agent, he kind of had to somehow match his financial situation out. And this is where I say the responsibility falls onto the client and the third party, right? Because we've done everything we possibly can. However, the agent wasn't going to get his full commission or whatever he had planned to get on this particular hunt, and the clients weren't going to get their full list of expectations. So what does the responsibility look like? Well, the clients need to understand their situation. They need to appreciate, number one, that I was honest with them and transparent. They need to appreciate their situation that they're in. They're in a beautiful country, beautiful lodge, beautiful facilities, people that care for them, bringing them drinks, making sure that they look and live like absolute royalty. So take that and make the most of it, and which they didn't. From then on, from day one till day number 10, they bitched and moaned pretty much about absolutely everything. The food was never good enough. The drinks weren't bought in on time. We were getting to the lodge too late in the mornings. We were getting to the lodge too late at night. Nothing ever went according to plan. Now, because we were offering a bad service, I don't think so. I think the animosity stuck when it became a situation between the agent and the clients at the time. So that is the bad end of the story. I have too many good stories to share the other flip end of the coin, but I'll put it into perspective. The majority of my clients, I will always know when they leave the property, and I get a WhatsApp when they arrive the next day or the next morning, whatever it may be, safely in their own country. I know we have developed more than just a client relationship. We have become friends. And ultimately, through friendship, you have the best experiences possible. So guys, with that being said, here on my list of, it's just a throw out list there for clients coming out to South Africa on their first safari. It's also a podcast you can share with a client coming out on their first safari that they might think of things from a different perspective. So share it with them. Send it to them. Send the YouTube link. Send the Carbon Core TV or Carbon TV link. Send whatever you guys can across to them to help them understand. And I said the same thing with the tipping. It makes these difficult conversations a little bit easier to have when they've listened to a podcast on their 23-hour flight journey across the pond. Excuse me. So, number one is research and choose the right outfitter. Well, I would have trust by now, after show season, that you guys would have done extensive research on what you have gathered from the shows, brought it back into practice, and selected the right outfitter for you. Look, there are going to be situations where you're not always going to get it right the first time, the second time, the third time. But make the most of it. Know what you want before getting to South Africa. A lot of the time, individuals will go over to these shows. They'll select a package at the show, and that's pretty much what they stick with. They never do research over and above that particular package. Why do I say this? Well, like I've mentioned in many podcasts before, guys, South Africa is all about opportunity hunting. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, guys need to understand that having an open book policy when arriving in South Africa is absolutely crucial. Because if a big warthog with banana tusks come darting out of that bush, a massive steenbok, a big darker, animals that are purely based on opportunity, you need to be fully aware of the opportunity you have being placed in front of you. And as a hunter, I always say that's kind of like the hunting gods staring down on you, right? They've delivered something that most professional hunters will get extremely excited about. We'll get into that a little bit later. But understand that research over and above the animals you plan to hunt is critically important, purely for the open book policy. I would hate for me to release this podcast and for you guys to come over here and miss out on good opportunities that professional hunters or outfitters said you should have maybe possibly taken. So guys, please understand that this comes from a good spot. So, of course, by now, like again, this is all understanding that you would have selected the correct outfitter, but doing research and finding references on outfitters is absolutely invaluable. Now, don't go and phone the references that they list on their website. Go onto their social media pages and go and have a look who they've recently hunted with. And go and handpick a couple of those guys and reach out on DMs. Reach out to these guys and say, hey, listen, I see you hunted with XYZ safaris. How was your experience? Wow, what could you take from it? Are there any tips that you guys could give from me? Was the laundry done? How's the food? Is there stuff for my wife to do? It's very easy for me to come and sell my company to you guys that side of the pond. But if you turn around and flick on my social media pages and go along and filter through all the guys that I've hunted and phone them, they will give you a very honest opinion. More importantly, if they've had a bad experience. So make sure that you verify your outfitter, verify your professional hunter. Now, for the big one, and I'm going to save this one for last, is pricing and bill. But we'll get to that a little bit down the line. If you are traveling with firearms, please make sure that you've made prior arrangements with guys like Mr. X, African Sky Safaris, all these people that help you along the way. Make sure that your SAPS 520 permits are all completed. So that when your rifles arrive, that you guys have got the correct paperwork in place and all that. So there's no hassles at customs when it comes to firearms. We've seen it in the past that a lot of safaris not lose their credibility, but lose their momentum right off the bat purely from their experience in customs. So if you guys can streamline that experience, by all means, you set up for a good safari. Pre-hunt preparation. So for me, so we're gonna get down now to point number 5 with communications. But pre-hunt preparations, and I've listed here number 1 is get in touch with your professional hunter. There is no reason why any outfitter shouldn't, by this point before you coming out, shouldn't have paired you with a professional hunter. So you personally asking the question of who is my professional hunter and would you mind if I get in contact with them is perfectly fine. And I highly recommend this for 2 reasons. Well, in this category, pre-hunt preparation, 2 reasons. optics, and clothing. Now, why do I mention optics? A lot of the time, depending on the professional hunter, and I've seen it, it's been a recent thing that started creeping into the industry, is long distance shooting. So make sure that you are prepared on long distance shooting. You're prepared on sticks. You're prepared with the correct facilities that you know, especially if you're using your own rifle, you're capable of taking 300, 400 yard shots. Me personally, I'm not a long distance shooter. I don't like the fact. But in saying that, I have seen a lot more successful opportunities taken with guys that can shoot those distances on a lot bigger animals. So for instance, if I'm seeing that kudu at 500 yards and I know it's 50-inch plus, every right to be able, I know I've got the equipment to be able to line that animal up and ask my client to take an ethical shot on that. When you bring in your own equipment, you need to make sure that that equipment is just right and you've shot off the particular sticks or similar sticks to what your professional hunter is hunting. So please just keep that in mind. Range time before coming out on a safari, I can't stress this enough, is immensely important. Immensely. And not just a range time where you're shooting off a sandbag, shoot off sticks, different scenarios, kneeling down, sitting down. I learned a hard lesson when we went over to Maryland last year, and we used tree stands. Now in South Africa, we never use tree stands. So I was in a very unfamiliar predicament when I got up into the tree stand. And there were a couple of scenarios where I felt a little bit dodgy pulling my bow back and really getting into position to make an ethical shot out of it. So I've learned my lesson. I've come back and I've pretty much, I went down to our local welding shop and I said, make me 2 tree stands so I can put them in my trees in my backyard and practice out of them, because I know these opportunities are going to come up again, and I need to be fully prepared for that. So just make sure that you have equipped yourself with hunting out of different scenarios: sitting down, standing up, free range, buffalo charge. Buffalo charge is a big one, and a client of mine, he's currently he's practicing to come out and hunt a buffalo, and he said to me, he said, what is the number one thing he needs to practice? And I said, reaction time. Now, I'm a motocross racer, so my reactions, I've been trained with reaction time. There were different scenarios we did with dropping stones, dropping tennis balls, shooting lights, torches, lasers, all that sort of stuff. So I said to him, I said, Paul, listen, just do me a favor and test your reactions. So he said, how? So I said, well, try and simulate a buffalo charge. And he sent me this video, and I need to try and find it so I can put it up on this podcast, because so it's a brilliant idea, and it's pretty much a similar system we've used back in professional hunting school. But he went as simple as he possibly can, and he tied a massive tractor tire to a piece of rope and onto his tow hitch of his truck. And he told his daughter she mustn't let him know when she's gonna pull off. And all of a sudden you see him walking, and then this tire starts smashing it along the grass. And then he's like quick, and he pulls out and he starts shooting. He's shooting with a 4.58 open sight lever action. So so it's a brilliant idea, and you see him do this like 2 or 3 times, and it's incredible. It really is. I admire him, and I'm going to ask him to send me the video so I can try and get it up somewhere on my socials. But I was intrigued with how that all went down. But those are the kind of things that you need to do. You need to understand the situations that you might be put in, especially with a buffalo. I mean, last year we saw a magnificent rise in buffalo charges, and I don't know if it's just because they're becoming more aware to the dangers and stuff humans propose, or if it's just different scenarios that the hunters are putting themselves in. Ill practices, maybe. I think it's just pure hunting incidents. But so with that being said, just understand that. So hunting those different scenarios is very, very important. And then the second thing I mentioned on this point was clothing. So there's two things about the clothing now. First thing is camo. Now, for a lot of individuals that hunt South Africa in majority of the spaces, our safest bet is always khaki plain clothing. What I have seen more recently, there are a couple of brands out there in the Northern Hemisphere, and I'm going to get into camo in a completely separate podcast because I think it's becoming a little bit of an intricate market and it's a lot more effective than what we actually think. But with saying that, you need to have clothing that can withstand the harsh bushveld that South Africa has. We've got massive white thorns from the acacia trees. We've got Huck and Steek up in Limpopo, or what's it? Vachabiki. Wait a little bit. It's like a cat claw bush that you guys have got in the States. There's different scenarios, and I know there are some top quality brands out there. For many years I used Treason. They exceptionally well. They handle our bushveld. I've tried and tested. The patterns are arguably probably some of the best. There are a lot of guys that will argue against that, but every man to his own. But they really have got exceptional quality. Some of the other brands that I've hunted with is Kuyu, Sitka, First Light. A lot of those camo brands really withstand the South African bushveld, but also don't pack a lot. Majority of your guys' outfitters will have laundry facilities. Normally your laundry takes a day or two to get back, so pack about 2 or 3 changes of hunting clothes, and the rest just make sure that it's for leisure. But good quality hunting clothes depending on the season, and this is why I say again, your communication with your professional hunter is so important. He can say to you, Bob, listen, it's been raining quite a bit. Bring some waterproofing shoes or whatever it may be, because time is of the essence, and you don't want to be walking around in a wet pair of boots for the next 2 days. So as long as you've got those rotations available, make sure that you've prepared correctly. Fitness level. Paul, the same client I was talking about with the buffalo, I said to him, I said, well, as long as I can outrun you, I know it's a safe bet. Just joking around, but Paul's been doing really, really well with a lot of fitness levels. He's been running and walking and making sure that he stays up in Reno, I think Reno's in Nevada. So his altitude levels are quite high, which is awesome. But he's been doing there's nothing too intense that you need to do. Just make sure that your heart rate is constantly lifted up above the threshold. You're in aerobic state. You're making sure that your blood is circulated correctly. And all these reasons for that is that when those scenarios come up, your heart is racing, you can control quite a bit of it. So that's very, very important, is fitness levels. Don't come out to South Africa without any sort of preparation. That's key. Sorry, guys. For some reason tonight, I don't know if it's the aircon or what the situation is, but my throat is drying up pretty badly. Anyway, so in-camp conduct. Now, this is where it gets good for me. Communication with your professional hunter. This one, I've done so many podcasts on this, and I can't stress it enough. A client's relationship with his professional hunter has got to be one of the most important relationships within the hunting industry. And there's so many different reasons for that, and a lot of guys can argue against it. But for the fact of the matter is that between the rifle and the animal is two individuals that in newly developed scenarios have no idea, no personal attachment attached to themselves. They don't know each other from a bar of soap, especially first-time safari comers. Guys that have been here before, that have built these relationships up with their professional hunters, will understand what I'm about to say. Guys, the responsibility of communication between you and your client, soon to be friend, is intensely important. There's so many reasons for this, but I'm going to highlight my top 5. Number 1 is transparency and honesty. If you as a professional hunter are confident enough to be honest with your client, soon to be friend, you are putting yourself in such a great position to build that relationship, not just for that one hunt, but for many, many hunts to come. Because I trust you now, clients always come back. At the moment, the hunting industry is sitting on about 78% return. So honesty is immensely important. It also helps with understanding. You need to understand from a professional hunter's point of view that when your client comes out, all he wants to do for the first 3 or 4 days is learn and understand what he's looking at. He's not going to know the difference between a male and female blue wildebeest, a male and female black wildebeest, a young blue wildebeest, a mature young black wildebeest. Share that information with them. Transparency. Be open and honest with what you are looking at. Build a relationship. I know it's hard. One of the most important things I've learned, especially through my mental health battles and struggles and stuff, one of the easiest ways to break the ice is ask something personal. Ask, what work does he do? Or how many kids does he have? Or what are some of their dreams that they wish they tried? Or just get a personal question out there. It creates instant connection. Because if you can relate with that, with one another, that's important. So honesty, transparency, and ethical behavior. As clients, you guys need to understand that pulling that trigger comes with responsibility. Now, in situations of wounded animals, high intense situations, there are often scenarios where you do get trigger happy and you think you can retake that control and put it upon yourself to make those decisions. And that shouldn't be the case, especially on your first safari. You need to entrust in your professional hunter. But on the flip side of the coin, the professional hunter's responsibility is not to get trigger happy behind the client, and if he sees that it is a bad shot, not to start throwing lead. You are better than that. Understand animal behavior. If you see that thing's going to go off into the distance, then yes, sure, it's a completely different scenario. But assess the scenario first. Don't go and finish off every single animal that your client has a bad shot on. It's not a good rep we want to have. And that's important, guys. That's important to understand where the line is drawn. So for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, often in scenarios, in wounded animal cases, if a client pulls off a bad shot, the professional hunter is in every right to use his discretion to take his backup rifle and finish that animal off before it is lost. It's still your animal. You still hunted it successfully. You are still the hunter behind that animal. But we need to understand as professional hunters that it's the experience that we are chasing. And if your understanding and professionalism understands the animal behavior about what could go down, it's better to make sure that your client finishes off the animal completely. I've learned the hard way. You wait too late for the client to get into position and you just watch that animal run away. I've got episodes on YouTube about it. You can't have those moments back. But they are part of your journey in growth. They are part of your journey to develop. Not only as a client and a hunter, but also as a professional hunter. And that's why I say communication, trust, ethical behavior, and honesty is so important in building a relationship with your professional hunter. So when it comes down to, you need to understand, like, that point right there is one of the most important points I can highlight on this list. I'm an advocate for professional hunters. My fellow professional hunters, I will fight till the ends of the earth for them. And if I can make their scenario a little bit different and the client's experience a little bit better, I would want to do that. So, which leads me to the next one, is respect for trackers and lodge staff. I've done actually 2 episodes now on tipping. So if you guys want to, I will tag it down in the link in the description. Those of you that are watching this on Carbon TV, the tipping episode is up. Yeah, go along, search my page. You guys will find it over there. It's important to understand, number one, trackers are some of the most hard-working individuals in camp. They really are. Trackers work into the late hours of the night, majority of the night. I know for a fact, because I've made it a habit within myself to make sure I'll always, every single night before I go to bed, I'll always check in with my tracker. I'll always check to make sure that the skins and everything is well prepped, well served, looked after, put away, and it gives me that peace of mind. I've also got into a habit where that is the time I'll go and write my tags for the skins and the skulls, because it also forces me to make sure that I'm checking up on them. Because the last thing I want is a scenario where my trackers are leaving skins and stuff in the cooler room and it rolls over. It rolls over and they'll end up having too much to do with too little time. So understand the role your tracker plays. Understand the role the lodge staff play. The lodge staff are there to make your experience as comfortable as possible. So treat them with utmost respect and they will do the same to you. We've got some of the most incredible cultures and people in this country. And I am very fortunate that the hunting industry, majority of the hunting industry staff, from trackers to lodge staff to bartenders to chefs to whatever you want to think that can make up a lodge, are some of the most friendly, humble, work-driven individuals. And there really are a lot of special human beings. And that's what makes this industry tick. A lot of the people think that it's us and a couple of others, the heartbeat of this industry, but so too are those individuals. They play a very important role. So guys, please just keep that in mind. And then last but not least, under the lodge facilities is understand the plan going forward. Understand what you're going after tomorrow. I often always try and fill my clients in with the plan before we go to bed, because I know what happens is that guys will get to their rooms, flip up their phone, jump onto Instagram, do a bit of research, or jump onto Google, do a bit of research about shop placements and stuff. So just understand your plan the night before. It also helps you to understand that if you are going to other properties, and I've spoken about this in the tipping episode of the podcast, where you can take a little bit of extra bucks with, in case there are people that facilitate in your hunt on the other property. You know, it's just nice to reimburse them with a little bit of a thank you or whatever it may be. But if you guys want to find out more about that, go and check out that podcast about tipping. Post-hunt responsibilities, this is where it gets good, and I'm so glad Doug released a couple of videos on splitting image taxidermy. So if you haven't yet, head along to the splitting image taxidermy page and go and check out some of the videos Doug has put up, because it explains the scenario perfectly. Trophy care and taxidermy, there's not much of a responsibility the client has. However, I do feel there's a check responsibility. Just go up. Normally, it's become a new thing. We started doing it a couple of years ago with the previous outfit I hunted with, where we lay all the skulls out and guys take after safari photos and stuff. It's also a great way for the clients to be able to firsthand check their skins, check if the salt is being cleaned, check if their animals are correctly tagged and all that sort of stuff. Paperwork. Now, paperwork is crucial. I've done a podcast on this as well, but in a nutshell, the new rules and regulations from US Fish and Wildlife, and I don't think they actually new. I think they've been going for a couple of years now. We've always practiced good paperwork ethics, so this is something I'm very, very aware of. Trophy care and taxidermy. You as a hunter need to understand that you need a professional hunter's register. Whether you are the father and you've got your whole family with you, all family members need a register on the animals that they have shot. Even if little Johnny shot a porcupine or anything that is getting mounted or taxidermied and taken out of the country, he needs paperwork. It's just part of the new regulations. Well, not new, like I said, they've been going for some time now. So make sure your paperwork is in order. Make sure that you've done your research on your TOPS and CITES permits. So, for instance, black wildebeest TOPS permit, make sure that you've got the correct paperwork behind that. You make sure that you've signed the correct permitting for that. That's very, very important. And then sharing, last but not least, the final point of this whole thing. Sharing your story. Now, you may ask from a client's perspective, what is the responsibility of that? Well, you need to understand that when you leave this country and you go back to the US, to Europe, wherever you're from, and you're about to share your safari experience, not only has it a massive impact on your professional hunter's career, your outfitter's facility, your tracker, and everybody else that worked underneath you for that safari, but it has a massive impact on our industry. We are all connected, all hunters are, and we all see one another's stories, adventures, safaris, whatever it may be. And there's nothing that pleases me more to see somebody write a good review, share a wonderful story from an outfitter or professional hunter's post or whatever, because it costs nothing. It doesn't cost you a single cent to be able to log onto your outfitter's page and share their story about you. Log onto your professional hunter's page and share their story about you, or share their post, or do whatever, like it, comment. Because it grows those individuals into wanting to carry on and achieve great things within the industry. So from that point, I think it's just, I want to say like all these points of like relative low expectancy from a client's perspective. But if you really want to have a good time and you really want to enjoy yourself, there's one important thing you need to understand, is make best with what you have. Understand that this is your situation when you arrive there. May not be the 5-star lodge you were expecting, or it's more than what you were expecting. Make the best of it, because that's what experiences are all about. The South African hunting industry has grown from strength to strength. And I believe the reason why it has grown from strength to strength is because we've been blessed with some exceptional people that have come out and hunted this industry. You look back in history of the Teddy Roosevelts and all these high-end individuals coming out and sharing their experiences ignited a spark for other individuals to come out and experience Africa from a conservational point of view. And I do say conservation because hunting is the best conservation tool we have to offer. And I say this again, South Africa has been blessed with some incredible individuals in the industry. Some wonderful people doing some incredible work, some outstanding outfitters, professional hunters, trackers, lodge staff, people that do their job every single day with a smile on their face. But this industry is also blessed with incredible clientele. Individuals that come out and experience the hunting industry to the best of their ability. They leave here with experiences that will last a lifetime and memories they get to share forever. They bring their families back. They bring their sons back, their grandchildren. I've seen it all. I've been on hunts where daughters have shot their very, very first animal. And that is special. There's no better way to put it or to describe it than we have got the best human beings that we possibly can to drive this industry and our conservation efforts forward. And this podcast is all about responsibilities from a client's point of view. But I know majority of the clients are well aware of their responsibilities and they exercise them. So guys, with that being said, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to each and every single one of you that have supported me, but supported our industry, supported the South African hunting industry and the African hunting industry as a whole, and supported hunting. Thank you so much. Thank you for understanding your guys' responsibility that you have had in this industry worldwide, because every little bit counts. Thank you. That's it. If you are, happy hunting. Until then, stay safe, stay blessed, stay humble. We'll catch up with you guys soon.